And one of the most basic truths is that children who are confused about their identity need guidance and love and clarity. They don't need hormone injections and scalpels.
Children don't get those things. You get I should say puberty blockers when you go through puberty. It's in the name. It's to block the hormones that you would otherwise be getting. I still can't believe the governor. It's the governor, right? Yeah, the governor, Tate Reeves, introduced him and was like, ladies and gentlemen, I have the solution to all our problems here. It's Matt Walsh, you know, the guy who says the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon race is being replaced by inferior Mexicans. Yeah, that Matt Walsh. He's gonna sort our problems out. In terms of quality of life in America, Mississippi currently ranks 49th overall. Mississippi ranks as the second worst state in the US in the World News Report, a spot it has mostly maintained since the 2017 report with just a brief move to the 48th spot in 2019. The state maintains its low ranking due to low performance across many metrics. Mississippi ranks last in terms of healthcare due to low levels of access and outcomes. Nearly a fifth of the residents have no health insurance. 14% of residents claim to have avoided seeking medical care due to cost concerns. Mississippi also has the highest rate of obesity in the nation, with 38.7% being obese. The state also leads the nation in infant mortality, cesarean delivery, premature birth, and low birth weight. America's health rankings rank Mississippi the worst in the Economic Hardship Index. Nearly 19% of Mississippi's residents live at or below the poverty line. The per capita income for the state is $25,300, the lowest in the nation. Levels of unemployment and food insecurity are also the worst in the country. This is not to mock Mississippi, because I don't want any part of the world to have those kind of numbers. That's horrifying, and it requires very drastic and immediate action. Now, what do you think the government, or I should say the governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, did to save the day? Did he implement some kind of government-mandated health care? Did he try to hold the health insurance companies accountable? Did he try to start a government-mandated jobs program, or perhaps a food program to feed the citizens of his country who are suffering so deeply? Or did he invite a white supremacist to go speak about kids' genitals?
Matt Walsh is a writer for the Daily Wire who I think will be helpful as we discuss this legislation and its importance. Matt, would you please come up here and say a few words? And thank you for being in Mississippi.
Thank you.
This is real life, a real thing that is happening.
Great. Well, want to thank the governor and the lawmakers here in Mississippi who have done the right and necessary thing.
Like, isn't this just upside down land? Like, you know, are we in the upside down? Is that what this is? Am I going to start seeing all manner of ghosts and ghouls and vampire bats? Like, what the fuck? Of all the things, like, imagine. It's like, for the love of God, please help the people. It's like, oh, no, we got you. What about that dude who's like obsessed with kids' penises and stuff? No, like food, healthcare, that. I hear you, loud and clear. But counterpoint, the guy who's really thinking about kids' junk all the time, what could he think or say to help us? Let's find out.
By banning the horrific medical abuse of children. I'm extremely encouraged to not only see this law being passed.
Thank you. Sorry. I want to issue a correction. Octavia 324, proper call out. He is also very, very concerned about impregnating teenagers. I should have clarified. You are correct. I will take an L, fat ass L on that one, and yeah.
To see the national movement that we have been able to build, pushing back against the gender ideology madness that has a stranglehold on our society. And on our children for far too long.
Highest infant mortality rate in the United States. That is where he is speaking. And this is about protecting the kids. I don't know. What about giving women health care? What about that? What about giving mothers health care? What about giving people who can give birth health care? I mean, that could really help. That could really help raise the level of decrease the level of infant mortality that you're experiencing. Could go a long way.
The reality is that this is not a difficult issue, as the governor's already covered. It's quite straightforward, in fact. If we lived in a sane society run by sane people, we would all be able to agree on this point. The question of whether it's ever okay to castrate and sterilize and mutilate a child.
Again, like, he has zero concern for people getting, young boys or people who are assigned men at birth getting circumcisions. I've never seen that crusade. He's not touring the country, you know, going to other states to be like, yeah, so we got to talk about circumcision. It has to stop. This is my calling. Always has been. I think a lot about this.
Would be answered in one loud and unified voice, saying without hesitation, not only no, but hell no. That is how all normal, common sense, decent Americans answer the question. And they don't have to think about it.
What's wild too, this isn't happening. There is no bottom surgery for trans kids in Mississippi. Like, he's like, we have ended the scourge of the thing that never happened. Cool. Well, glad we got rid of that one. Yeah, we don't have to worry about it anymore. Sounds pretty good. Yeah, that was certainly, it was stressing a lot of people out, but yeah, that's taken care of. Moving on, what about all the dead babies? Because like you're really concerned about dead babies. You're always talking about the unborn. So there's a lot of babies that are trying to be born that are dying, and the mothers are dying too. We have a very high rate of that. It's actually the highest in the United States. Really fucked up. Probably something we should be doing something about, you know? I'm glad that we tackled the imaginary thing that never happened. I'm glad we did that. We got together, we banded together, and now we have accomplished this. We're past that. Hell yeah. Humans rock. Can we move on to the other things now?
But sadly, many of the people who hold power in this country and who run our institutions do not pass this basic test of human decency. These vultures have lined up to feast on and profit from the confusion of innocent kids. Confusion that these same vultures have intentionally fostered in the minds of our youth. They create the identity crisis.
By the way, the children he's always talking about that are getting all these mutilations and surgeries, again, it has to be reiterated time and time again. Whenever you hear Matt Walsh talk, that doesn't happen to kids. Kids' gender affirming surgery is using different names or pronouns or respecting the way they want to dress. It's just not being a dick. It's like it's basic human decency, you know, that level that, you know, your parents usually try to impart to you. It's usually like, hey, by the way, you probably shouldn't just make fun of people for the things that they are and try to treat people with respect the way you would like to be treated. That kind of lesson. Yeah. So it's that. That's what the gender affirming care on the behalf of you, Matt Walsh, and the rest of society has to be. That's all the rest of us, all the rest of us cis folks have to do is use pronouns the same way we've always used pronouns our entire lives. Like that's the way we've always used it. So we don't have to change the rules there. Everything stays the same. You just use the proper pronouns and don't be a dick. It's very simple.
And then they monetize it. These kids are put on so-called puberty blockers to chemically castrate them, drugs that, by the way, have been given to sex offenders to chemically castrate them, and now we give them to kids. Off-brand cancer drugs that we're giving to children.
He never started talking about this when it was being given to cis children, because cis children get it. And yes, different drugs can be used for different purposes and different quantities and different combinations with other drugs. That's how they work. I mean, neither of us are chemists, Matt, so I'm pretty much going to have to, you know, default to the doctors here. I'd say like every major medical association in the U.S. agreeing upon this, I'm going to defer to that. I'm going to say I do not have any expertise in this field, so I'm going to trust them. They seem to have a broad consensus on this.
They're given cross-sex hormones, which have irreversible and permanent effects. And before the age of 18, many kids will undergo surgeries, such as double mastectomies. Now, the kids cannot choose any of it.
Wait, you got to pick one or the other, Matt. You can't say that under 18, the kids are going to have the surgery suddenly then, but also they're mutilating children. Like, you know, what is it, in the womb? Are they giving them, like, sex change operations? Is that what's happening?
They cannot consent to it. They can't understand what they're doing or what the long-term effects or even short-term effects are going to be. You know, I often make the same point that the governor just made, and it's an important point, that many of the people who support and advocate for this butchery are not petitioning to lower the drinking age. You don't hear them calling for laws to make sure that kids have access to tobacco or firearms. They aren't marching in the street demanding that 13-year-olds should be able to get tattoos or open credit card accounts or take out mortgages. In all of these cases, they recognize that minors have neither the maturity nor the powers of discernment nor the psychological nor neurological formation required to make.
So, all lies. The evidence is overwhelming in the other direction to such a point now that you'd have to be just like, it's one of the people who do magnets change emotions at this point in terms of like, you are just define what the consensus is. And like, you're doing it for your own purposes. I understand that. It has to be reiterated time and time again. Again, every major medical association in the United States agrees on this. Matt Walsh is intentionally ignoring reality on a regular basis to spew his ideology. This is beyond the trash bin of ideology. You know, this is straight up the like unused, clogged gutter of ideology is what's going on here.
Make these sorts.
Let's just say the one in the shower that hasn't had the hair puller yet and hasn't been completely opened up, that it's like the undrained hair gutter of ideology is where we're at.
Of choices. And yet these gender ideology advocates want us to believe that the child who can't be trusted with a can of beer or with a credit card should be trusted to permanently transition into a different gender.
But like, there's no such thing as a kid just walking into a hospital and getting surgery. That doesn't happen. There's zero recorded cases of it. And if that was the case, then Matt Walsh would be like, every single one of these pundits would be telling you that every single day. So what does happen is kids who have privilege, by the way, you have to have either access to healthcare or the ability to afford it. The kids with the privilege and the parents, who, also the privilege of parents who are going to be open-minded enough to do this, they're the ones who will have consultations with experts. And it's not like the first day, hey, by the way, do you want bottom surgery? I mean, we have a 2-for-1 coupon going on right now. No, it's, do you want to have a consultation with a doctor to discuss perhaps something that your child is exploring? But there's many potential outcomes that this could be, and we want to help them along the way and not make them feel as if they are somehow inherently wrong for who they are. That's pretty much the extent of it. In Matt's world, like, if a kid came up to you and was like, Matt, my stomach hurts. And it's like, oh, you stupid kid, don't know anything, don't know what you believe, don't know what you want. Well, my tummy really hurts. Ah, you're a dumbass kid, stupid, low IQ. What are you, a 6-year-old? You have no IQ? Blah, get out of my way. If it turned out that kid actually had appendicitis, or it turned out he had some form of even stomach cancer or something like that, something in which they needed to get medical attention, are you just going to continuously ignore it? If your kid's like, I feel sick, and then they start having a fever, it's like, oh, you're not sick. It's like, I feel like I'm burning. It's like, yeah, no, he's got a really high temperature. No, he's just being a pussy. Boys don't get high temperatures. Boys don't cry. Boys don't sweat. Blah, blah, blah. Like, no, at a certain point, you would start listening to a child. You can be like, well, children have wild imaginations. They have imaginary friends. Am I supposed to speak with Barney the dinosaur every time they say that they think they're a girl or a boy? No, motherfucker. But if this is a persistent thing that is clearly troubling a kid and they're trying to tell you about it, fucking listen. What's wrong with you? You know? If someone is like, hey, I'm hurting, or this is wrong, or something feels wrong, or this isn't good, then don't just sit back and be like, well, you're dumb, don't know shit. You'll learn one day when you're an adult what the world's really like.
It's madness. It is incoherent. And all the more incoherent when you consider that nobody actually can transition into a different gender. That's not physically possible. It's not medically possible. The doctors are lying to confuse.
By the way, you know what's wild? That Blair White fiasco has broken so many brains. I never thought I would see the day when the quartering Jeremy, the transphobic wizard, was fucking coming out and making posts being like, by the way, you hardcore far-right conservative Christians who are saying that Blair White is, you know, a different gender and is sinful and all this kind of stuff. You just don't get it. This is not a, quote, way to trap straight men. What are you saying? I was like, oh my God, Jeremy of the quartering is doing like fucking baby's first ContraPoints traps video or something like that. Like is he learning? I can't tell. Is this a learning lesson for all of them? Are they kind of like, oh well, you don't understand, blah blah blah. Like I'm not entirely sure. Like it's too much happening too fast. I'll say that.
Confused people. So the very fact that a child desires
Seniac,
to do such a
thing
in the first place is proof in itself that she isn't thinking clearly and doesn't understand what she's saying or what she claims to want, which is not unusual for children. That's why they're children.
Yeah, you understand there's a difference, though, between someone saying, like, hey, Matt, I'm a spaceman. You're like, oh, silly kid. And someone saying, hey, Matt, something's wrong. And then you're still gonna be like, oh, silly kid. Hey, Matt, something's still wrong. Oh, silly kid. Like, at a certain point, please listen to kids, especially when they're like, if they're in pain, or if they're in trouble, if they're having a problem. Like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to be there for. You're the one who's always advocating about protecting them.
Simply cannot allow this evil to continue. We cannot tolerate it. We who are decent and rational people, we who love our children, we who recognize basic truths. And one of the most basic truths is that children who are confused about their identity need guidance and love and clarity. They don't need hormone injections and scalpels.
Children don't get those things. You get I should say puberty blockers when you go through puberty. It's in the name. It's to block the hormones that you would otherwise be getting. Don't forget, Matt Walsh is on record saying 13-year-old girls are as mature as 23-year-old women in terms of getting married and having babies. He's on record saying that. He's on record talking about how 16 or 17 is the ideal impregnation when they're most fertile. That's when women are most fertile. It's like, most fertile? Who the fuck talks like that? You know?
They need and deserve to be protected from the child-abusing quacks and soulless goblins who wish...
Okay, that's the biggest self-report. They do, from Matt Walsh. Like, protect your kids from Matt Walsh. The danger here is Matt Walsh. This is the man who's basically like, well, I'm going to travel to other states to talk about other kids' genitals. Now I should have the right to inspect them. Like, yeah, you're the one obsessed with this shit. Everyone else is like, leave us the fuck alone, you know? Like, stop.
To exploit their confusion for their own financial gain. That's why we need this law.
Oh, thanks, Sonny.
Our kids cannot protect themselves. They cannot.
All right, let's see. From Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. Protesters gathered in Knoxville, Tennessee on Monday to demand justice for Lisa Edwards, a 60-year-old woman who died after suffering a stroke in the back of a Knoxville police car. Edwards was arrested on February 5th, trespassing charges after she refused to leave a local hospital following her discharge. At the time of her arrest, she was still wearing her hospital gown. Police body cam video shows she repeatedly told officers she needed medical care, saying, "I'm going to have a stroke, and I can't breathe." Lisa Edwards, "Oh my God, you've been medically cleared, so let's get in." "May I stop? I can't even breathe." "Yes, ma'am, you're going to have to get in there." "My ankle, I can't breathe." "That was your, you've been medically cleared, ma'am. This is not going to work, so you need to help us." "My hand, it hurts." "Ma'am, you need to get in there." At another point, Lisa Edwards can be heard telling Knoxville police officers, "You guys are going to let me die." An officer can be heard dismissing her warning, saying it's all an act. Instead of bringing back inside the hospital, officers placed her in the back of a patrol car where she remained unresponsive. Eventually, she was brought back to the same hospital, Fort Sanders Regional Medical Center. She was placed on life support and died the following day. In an interview with Knoxville, her son decried how the police treated her mother. "I can't even wrap my head around it. I just don't see how somebody could treat someone like that. They treated her like she's trash." That's fucking horrifying.
We need to do it. That's our job as adults. And everybody who's remained silent on this issue is culpable in what is happening to our kids. Many members of the media who have not demonstrated the slightest bit of skepticism, as the medical establishment has just told us over the years, that it's life-saving care.
So, yeah, we're still in the phase where, like, the New York Times is like, so should we print another story where we platform, the less than 5% of people who detransition and then give them the megaphone to be able to tell everyone else this is actually some form of, like, torture and stuff like that? Should we do another one of those stories? Do you think it's time for us to talk about how unfair J.K. Rowling has been treated? We should really do one of those, right? Hey, BBC, why don't you issue an apology to J.K. Rowling and be like, hey, you had it really bad. I'm sorry. You're basically saying that you want an entire group of people not to exist anymore, and then in turn, some people were mean to you on the internet, and we really didn't protect you in those trying times. I mean, I don't know what provoked them into being that upset, but here we are.
To castrate a child, and you have members, the majority of the media, that just goes along with that, doesn't ask one.
I still can't believe the governor. It's the governor, right? Yeah, the governor, Tate Reeves, introduced him and was like, ladies and gentlemen, I have the solution to all our problems here. It's Matt Walsh, the guy who says the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon race is being replaced by inferior Mexicans. Yeah, that Matt Walsh, he's gonna sort our problems out.
Unskeptical question about it. All culpableness.
Culpableness.
That's why we need to protect our kids. We can and we must. And now Mississippi has.
Even Republicans in Mississippi hate Tate Reeves? Oh, I didn't know that.
And finally, I would only say to any other state that hasn't gotten on board with protecting kids that it's time to get on board.
By the way, don't mince words. The Daily Wire is a hate network, and it's amplified by YouTube. YouTube can sit back and once Pride rolls around, do their entire, like, you know, rainbow washing parade where they're all like, oh yeah, we love protecting and amplifying and talking about our, you know, LGBTQ plus brothers, sisters, non-binary relatives, all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, it's like, this is happening on the regular. You are amplifying these people to such a degree that they are getting governors to invite them over to talk about this shit.
Okay, it's time to get on board. It's time to do the right thing. It's way past time. We have to act now.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah, Matt Walsh on tour. Click the link in the description. Use code WALSH for 2 months free. Make sure you don't wash your asshole, otherwise you're gay. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tal, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojak, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.